Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show, and I am very excited to have Jamie Crane Mauzy here in studio. We've waited quite a while to talk to her about what happened to her and where she's come from those events not too long ago. Welcome to the studio, Jamie. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first and foremost, let's talk about, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about your career and where you were at and the injury and start there. So tell us a little bit about the run up to that.
Awesome. I will do that. So the injury happened on April 11th, 2015. Before that, I was a traveling professional skier. I competed around the world. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so on April 11th, 2015, I was at World Tour Finals, and I got 4th place first run. And anyone around Park City who knows about competitions know if you're in 4th, you want to get on that podium.
Absolutely.
So I upgraded to get on that podium.
Right.
And I upgraded my flat 3, that's an off-axis backflip, to a double flat 7, an off-axis double backflip. Because at the 2013 X Games, I became the first female in the world to compete a double flip, my double backflip.
Right.
And so I wanted to do an off-axis double, but I didn't land it really well. I under-rotated, caught my edge. Luckily my feet hit first, but I under-rotated, caught my edge, whiplashed my head into the snow. My brain started bleeding in 8 spots. I started convulsing. I hurt my right brainstem, so my entire right side was paralyzed. And they didn't think my expectations were very high. When my first response was done dealing with me and I got taken away in the helicopter, they actually wrote up my fatality report because they thought I had a 1 in a miracle chance of reaching the hospital and surviving.
They were writing up the fact that you were, as far as they were concerned, they were writing you off is what they were doing. Yeah, essentially.
There was a couple different organizations that had to write up fatality reports, and if you look at me now, it's hard to imagine that that's how intense it was, because I have no brain damage and my body works equally now, but it was pretty scary. They didn't know for a couple of days if I was going to survive. And then after a few days when they did know that I was going to survive, they were pretty confident that I was never going to do any action sports. I was never going to do anything athletic. They didn't even think I was going to live independently on my own, be able to accomplish things. They weren't sure if I would ever drive again. And now I can drive, I can live on my own, and
the result is terrific. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, the end result is awesome because we're thrilled that you're back with us and that you're doing so well. Talk to me about those moments though. Did you know that it was that bad? Did you have any sense of an understanding of how bad you were injured? I
mean, at the time, I knew nothing because I don't remember a month. So when I was in the coma, I had obviously no recollection because I was in the coma. And then after I was recovering from the coma, I had a serious case of amnesia. So it was kind of like that movie, 50 First Dates. Yeah. I could do things and I would remember things, but I always would forget. I actually, this is kind of humorous, but I associated it with partying, and I told my family, they told me this story, I told them, one day when we were out at the park, I said, I must be like Chandra, my Canadian friend who parties all the time. I must be drunk and high at the same time because the nurses keep telling me I'm so funny, but I don't know what I did.
You don't remember any of it?
I couldn't remember anything.
Oh my. That time, was that scary for you to have those moments where you didn't know what was happening?
You would think it was scary for me, but for some reason, humor was a huge part of my recovery process.
Right.
And in the hospital, I never really got scared of anything, and I never even believed I was in a hospital. They actually wouldn't let me go until I knew where I was, like as my mind was starting to come back, and they'd be like, Jamie, where are you? And I'd be like, oh, I'm on a movie set, I'm the star, and it looks like a hospital, but old people and sick people are in hospitals. I'm not in a hospital. I go to the park every day. This is a movie. And they would be like, yeah, she's not in a movie about a hospital.
Right.
And so
they're like, we're not letting her go.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me go. So then my mom told me, she was like, okay, you're on the 12th floor at Intermountain in Salt Lake City. That means you're in inpatient care. So technically, you're not in the hospital, but it would make the nurses feel way better if you told them you were in the hospital. So the next day, they're like, Jamie, where are you? And I said, I'm supposed to tell you I'm in the hospital. They're like, woohoo, she knows where she is. They didn't know that I still didn't think I was in a hospital. I had a hammock in my room. My little sister decorated my whole room for me. She put up so many pictures. She put like a hammock where they had little things for people who didn't know how to walk usually.
Right.
She put up a hammock there, and I was like, does this look like a hospital room to you? Do I look like a hospital patient? I was the kind of person, and humor played so much of a role in my recovery. I actually, as my mind was coming back, I don't fully remember, I was in the cafeteria at Intermountain, which actually has great food.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good food. But I was in the cafeteria because my family would go down for lunch like once a week. And the table next to us, there was nurses, and they were playing music. And I said, oh, I love music. And they said they would play me a song. And I said, okay, Style by Taylor Swift. And they put that on. And then for some reason, I thought it was appropriate at 22 years old to stand up in the middle of the cafeteria, on the middle of the table, and stand up there and do a choreographed dance to Style by Taylor Swift. And I did the dance, they laughed and clapped, I bowed, standing on top of the table, and that's the kind of recovery process I had. Was I did a lot of really funny things. I stayed really happy. It wasn't scary because I'm very health conscious.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of absolutely everything now, which I didn't used to do. But I evaluate every situation, and I don't do anything I'm possibly scared about. But it was much emotionally harder going back to skiing. Going back to skiing was okay, but like one of the Grand Prix was in Park City, and that was awesome to see all my friends, but I cried 5 times that day. And I was wearing my sunglasses, and I kept tearing up behind them, and it was really hard for me to hear how difficult it was training for the competition, how nervous they were, when I couldn't be at the competition. I couldn't be training. I couldn't have those nerves for it. Like everything that they had to say about how difficult it was competing or anything was so hard to hear when I didn't know if I ever was going to compete again. I still don't know. I probably am not going to ever compete again at that level that way.
Right.
So it was really, really, really hard. And I started actually going to see a therapist, and I still go. And
is that the most?
It's awesome.
Is that the most difficult part for you emotionally then?
Yeah.
Not being able to get back to competition?
Everything emotional is difficult for me. You would think relearning how to do everything would be challenging.
Yeah, but you've been able to do that.
I like to set goals. I like to accomplish goals. I like working hard physically.
Right.
But what was the hardest for me was the emotional challenges I faced. I honestly was never depressed. So 1 in 2 people who have traumatic brain injuries are depressed, and 1 in 6 actually commit suicide.
Wow.
And so I was like, that's not me. I'm not in that boat. But then why do I have these issues? When you hit your head, it affects your brain because your brain's in your head. Yeah. And that was by far the hardest for me because I felt like I had so many opportunities and doors open. Who was I to feel bad about things?
Yeah.
So I didn't think I deserved to feel bad. And I think a lot of like professional athletes or celebrities have that problem, and they counter it either by being depressed or doing drugs because we feel like they deserve to feel bad, and they don't want to get help until it's too late and it's desperate to get help. So I went to start seeing a therapist before I was depressed, before I needed help, just because I wanted to talk to someone who can't share anything that I tell them and who is trained to give me advice and evaluate me.
One thing that must be difficult, I know that you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, but just getting people to recognize that you're okay has been hard, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Telling people that you're who you still believe you are, that you're healthy. That part is hard for people to wrap their head around. I think, especially those who saw the injury in the first place. that's been difficult, right? You family, friends,
yeah,
a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's interesting because now this summer it's started changing, but especially last winter, it was really challenging. Like my friends, they were awesome, but anyone who was involved with the injury or heard about the injury, I could say no wrong. I wasn't Jamie anymore. I was this other person.
Yeah.
And I could be like, yeah, this guy is kind of like green, and they'd be like, yeah, it is. It's not.
Play right along.
It's not green.
Yeah.
It's because, and so that was really challenging, and everyone was super nice. But the thing is, everyone is ethically egotistical. That means that they want to do what they think is best. And so, with someone who almost just died, you have to agree with everything they say because it makes you feel better because you're agreeing with the person who almost died, so you're making them feel better, you think. But no one was treating me normally and disagreeing with me, and that's just how life is.
And you were testing them.
Yeah, well, yeah, I began to a little bit. And the other thing was I had some friends who, or acquaintances, who would say, yeah, let's hang out. And then they would never be free. And they wouldn't tell me, you know what, I don't really want to hang out with you. They would say they would want to hang out and tell me to call them and then not answer and not be free. And it was really challenging to understand that it would have been fine to just be like, yo, I'm super busy, like I'm not down, I can't hang out right now. That's a fine thing to say. Don't say you're free and you can hang out and then blow me off and not tell me you're blowing me off. It was really challenging
that
for me.
virtue, though, again, was that same thing, trying to be the nice person, even though back in the past it would have been normal for them to say, yeah, I'm too busy right now, but we'll catch up on Friday or something.
Right, and it was lucky because all my friends wanted to be the best person, but yeah, emotionally, I had a lot of challenges this fall. I've been lucky because I've been working at the National Ability Center this summer, and I've been going to Westminster for college, so I've been super busy.
That helps.
Which has helped me out a lot. Actually, I have had weeks where I can't even take Saturday or Sunday off, which you think might be challenging, but I like to be super busy, so it was great for me to be able to do.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit more, about your summer and about what your plans are for this winter. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and continue our conversation with Jamie Crane Mauzy. Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. We're continuing our conversation with winter athlete Jamie Crane Mauzy, and we're having a lot of fun for sure. It's so nice to see you in this setting, I think, because we haven't really ever had a chance to talk to you off the slopes, and certainly not since your injury. So we're thrilled you're here. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about family. We talked a little bit about them and how they've helped you along. But your family lives here in Park City. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about how they've helped you along the way.
Yeah, my whole family went up to Vancouver, including my two older sisters, one who lives in Connecticut and one who lives in Oregon, at the time when I was in the coma. At the time, my mom was actually in Connecticut, and she was on the phone with the doctor, and she kind of spaced out, and didn't space out, she like panicked, and she was like, just answer this question, is my daughter still alive? And he said, yes, for right now. And then she dropped the phone and like collapsed on the beach and started freaking out. But when Fruit was flying, my mom, her nickname is Fruit. When she was flying to Vancouver, she made the decision that however I was, however I became, she would cater to that person and she would take care of that. And she actually was a psychology major. She had a federal grant from the government to teach self-esteem to women. And so she knew a lot about this in her training and college years and stuff and masters. So when she got there and she saw that I was still alive, she just took care of me. And then she had the ideas of like teaching me Rosetta Stone in English when my English was coming back. Me doing Lumosity every day when I left the hospital. Me, when I was last summer, when I left the hospital but was still recovering, she made me relearn Algebra 1 again so my brain cognitics kept firing. She taped down my strong hand so my weak hand, because I had a right brainstem damage, so my right side was paralyzed, and she made me work and use my right hand and tape down my left hand so my body started working again.
Amazing. You don't seem, I would have thought if anything it'd be your left side.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's impressive.
Thank you.
Wow. So good mom.
Yeah, so she did a lot. And then my little sister Jeannie is actually a professional half-pipe skier. For the last 2 years, she was on the pro tour. We traveled together. We added in going into vacation spots in the destinations. So like when we would go to France, go to the mountain towns in France, and add in going to Paris and the Louvre and like checking out all of Paris, which was really cool. And she was actually at World Tour Finals because she was supposed to compete in half-pipe the next day. She didn't, but she gave me a hug when I was dropping in for my run. She watched it and she saw me convulsing on the snow, and it was pretty dramatic for her.
Yeah.
And she went to a World Cup in New Zealand last summer and she cried the whole time because something she loved had almost taken away something else she loved, and it was really hard for her to deal with. And then she made the decision that she was going to be happy at every competition, she was going to smile, she was going to stay in her comfort zone, but she was going to improve every time. And then last winter, she was on 4 podiums.
Wow.
She became the Norm overall champion and the best junior skier in the world. So I would say her mindset worked pretty well.
Yeah, she got right back to it.
Yeah.
As did you. I mean, when you think about this for a minute, I think the last place somebody who gets severely injured wants to go is back to, you know, to the places where that could happen. Mm-hmm. But you've been back out on you've been out on the tour. You've got you know, as far as you know, being there and being there for your fellow competitors, but also for yourself. You're now in speaking engagements in several of these as well, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about them.
Okay, about the speaking engagements?
Yeah, talk to me about what you guys have. You've got some pretty cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, it's actually pretty exciting because I'm leaving on Friday to go up to Vancouver, and when I'm up in Vancouver, I'm going to Whistler for 2 days, and then the Vancouver General Hospital actually put on this event, so they're covering the trip, which is a really nice experience.
That is nice.
And so there's a couple media televisions going with me up to Vancouver, going back to, up to Whistler, going back skiing. And then in Vancouver, I'm going to be on a panel with 3 doctors at the Vancouver General Hospital. One was my head neurologist, and they're going to talk about the fact that I was treated with an oxygen analyzing brain bolt. And I actually was the first person to be treated that way in all of Canada, and the first person in all of North America to be treated that way, because they tested it out and heard about it actually from England, and they wanted to try it out on a person in Canada, and my family signed off that I could become a test. And what it does is it tests out your oxygen level in your brain from your brain. So what that means is one day, they usually test out from your finger, and one day my finger said my oxygen level was fine, but my brain said it was low. So they increased the oxygen level going to my brain. Oh. And if you think about it, any oxygen in your brain, if you don't have oxygen, that's what causes permanent brain damage for anything or part of your brain to die. And even in children, when they're being born, if something happens to their oxygen levels, it creates permanent damage. And so one of the reasons they think I recovered fully was because at the beginning, they increased the oxygen level to my brain and tested it out from inside my brain. They actually inserted the bolt right here. Wow. It's just a tiny bump, but I was pretty lucky because you can't really see anything unless you feel my head.
Wow, that's amazing. It's good that your parents are willing to take, I guess, some risks, right?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, you certainly have not, and you've always been a risk taker.
Yeah.
So I guess that to them probably it was a little bit second nature, I suppose, but good that they did.
Yeah, they have the idea. One of the sayings that my mom comes up with all the time is, you get in a car. She thinks everyone gets in a car, and that's the most dangerous thing that could happen. The most traumatic brain injuries actually occur from a car. One of the reasons I made such a big impact was because it doesn't happen very often in skiing. It has happened to a couple other people, and it's a very dramatic event, but it doesn't happen that often, versus everyone gets in a car and you don't even think about it, but that has the most potential for damage. It is the most dangerous thing you can actually do.
Let's get in the car. Now, you're just coming through finals. Your fellow Griffin down at Westminster, right? So working on the business degree, is that right?
Yeah, I'm actually making up. I did 2 years of college, and then I took 5 years off for my ski career, and now I'm going back to college. I'm going to the summer semester, fall semester at Westminster, and I'm actually making up my own degree, because at Westminster you can make up your own degree. Right. But it's going to be business related. Before my accident, I was in marketing, and I'm still interested in that, but now I am doing more management and communications. Communications is huge because I've already done gigs as a professional motivational speaker, but I want to do more gigs, and that's the direction I want my career path to follow. So communications is big in that.
Yeah, for sure. And you're not afraid to tell your story, which is a big important part of that, for sure.
Yeah.
So, of course, I hope you're doing well in school. It sounds like you are, from what I'm told, which is awesome. And then, of course, yeah, we're excited for you for your future. It sounds like things are certainly looking up.
Thank you.
We sure were worried at one time for your health, and things have gotten so much better. It's so great to get the chance to sit down and talk to you for a minute.
Thank you. Yeah, when I was healing in the hospital, I actually looked at some of the everyone sharing facts about me in television interviews and all these things at the time of my accident, and I was like, that's me. I didn't even know exactly who I was. So I was like, oh wow, everyone really likes me. I must be nice. But
you had no idea.
I didn't know who I was, and it moved me so much that so many people cared about me. So thank you to all the Park City community, because it meant so much to me, and I was crying in the hospital, and no one knows those factors, but your guys' belief in me made me realize who I was, and that I had doors open again, and I could go through those doors. It might be different doors,
sure, but
they still are doors. So,
well, it brings us to an interesting conclusion here, and that is asking you what people can do for other people who have injuries like this. What can we do as a general public to support people with brain injuries? There's certainly a lot of organizations and things, National Ability Center being one of them, but talk to me about, if somebody is in this situation now where they have a family member or friend who has a brain injury, or if they're just simply interested in making sure that those people have support, what can they do? Good
question. It's easiest to start out with if you have a family member or a friend who has a traumatic brain injury, because you're closer to them. And for those types of people, I would help your family or friend set one goal that they know they can accomplish. Some people, they don't go all the way back, and you're going to be okay even if you don't go all the way back. So help them understand they're going to be okay at whatever level they get to, and set one goal they can accomplish tomorrow, so they're moving in baby steps in the direction they want to go in.
Excellent.
And I would say to the general population, if you want to help them out, I would say treat them as normal as possible. That's what we do at the National Ability Center. We give everyone opportunities. Maybe if you know or have heard of someone, tell them they should go to the National Ability Center, because we have tandem bikes. We have everyone, right. Every participant can do every type of sporting activity safely. And so just make sure that they feel like they can still do things, and you can't always treat them 100% normal, but try to treat them as normal as possible.
Definitely. Speaking of that, will I get to go out and ski with you this winter?
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, I can't wait, for sure. Jamie Crane Mauzy, thank you so much for joining us. It's been
Thanks for having me.
Awesome time talking to you. We have a lot more coming up here on the Mountain Morning Show. As we wrap up this hour, we'll tell you all about the next as well, right here on the Mountain Morning Show.